She fainted in a stranger's arms and woke up somewhere she shouldn't be. Lesia didn't even feel the inhaler slip from her hand. All she felt was the world tilt, violently, like the floor had been yanked out from under her by invisible hands. A thin, broken gasp tore from her throat, but it wasn't air. It wasn't even close. It was the raw, desperate sound of someone trying to breathe through a locked door. Her vision flickered. The pharmacy lights above her smeared into blinding white halos, stretching and bending like they were melting. Voices around her twisted into echoes. Not words, just noise. "Ma'am. Ma'am, are you all right?" No. She wasn't. Her lungs clawed for air, frantic and shallow, each inhale smaller than the last. Pressure wrapped around her chest, tight, crushing, squeezing her ribs like a vice. She tried to speak, tried to say help, tried to say my inhaler, tried to say anything, but all that escaped her lips was a faint, trembling whisper. "Please." Her knees buckled. The world pitched forward. And then arms. Strong arms. They caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her weight with a steadiness that didn't match the chaos dissolving around her. "I've got you," a deep voice said, low, urgent, too close. "Stay with me. Open your eyes." She forced them open. The first thing she saw was a pair of piercing eyes, cold blue, sharp as a blade, locked onto hers with startling intensity. A stranger's face hovered above her. Tense jaw, focused expression, every muscle pulled tight like he was bracing for impact. She didn't know him. Never seen him. But he looked at her like losing her would cost him something. Her chest spasmed again. She tried to inhale, tried to drag in anything, but the air just wouldn't come. Her fingers curled into his shirt, gripping without meaning to, desperate for anything solid. "See, can't," she choked. His hold tightened, not possessive, but stabilizing. "Don't talk," he said. "Just look at me. I need you to stay awake." She tried. But the edges of her vision dissolved into shadow. The floor felt miles away. Someone shouted about calling an ambulance. The stranger's voice cut through everything, controlled, steady, but with a tension that betrayed how fast his own pulse must have been racing. "You're going to be all right." Then the darkness swallowed her whole. Something warm brushed her forehead. A voice, deep, steady, too calm for the panic inside her, murmured words she couldn't fully understand, like she was underwater and only catching fragments. "You're safe, hold on." She was moving. No, someone was carrying her. Floating. Drifting. Doors opening. Cold air. The muted thud of car doors. The low hum of an engine. She struggled to open her eyes. Just a sliver. Enough to see the outline of a man beside her in the dim interior. Broad shoulders, dark shirt, a glint of a watch catching the passing streetlights. The same stranger. Her voice scraped out, thin and weak. "Where are we going?" He leaned closer so she wouldn't have to strain. "You fainted," he said, calm but tight. "Try to stay awake. We're almost there." There. Where was there? Before she could ask again, the world blurred out. The next time she surfaced, she wasn't in the car. She was being lifted again. Up steps this time. Her head rested against his chest unwillingly, catching the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her cheek. A scent, clean, faintly cedar, hung around him. Her fingers grazed soft fabric. Expensive. His voice came again, low, firm. "It's all right. I'm getting you inside." Inside where? She forced her eyes open. And froze. A chandelier loomed above her, massive and glittering. The hallway stretched wide, lined with polished marble and warm golden light. Art framed in heavy gold glinted against the walls. A mansion. Her body tensed. He carried her through an enormous living space. Modern, quiet, too quiet, and into a breathtaking guest room. He lowered her gently onto a bed soft enough to swallow her. Her breathing was still uneven. Her fear sharper by the second. Her voice cracked. "Please. Don't hurt me." He froze. Then his voice softened, controlled, careful. "I'm not here to hurt you." A pause. "I'm trying to keep you alive." Her lungs trembled, breath shallow. He reached into his pocket, pulled out something, held it near her lips. Her inhaler. He had it. I bought it. They were taking too long, he said quietly. You were slipping. She stared at him, confused, terrified, grateful, overwhelmed. Why did you bring me here? She whispered. He hesitated, and something dark flickered behind his expression. Not evil, not cruel, something haunted. Because you weren't safe out there, he said. And because... He met her eyes. Because someone at that pharmacy wasn't just watching you. Her blood ran cold. Welcome to our channel, where we bring you emotional stories that stay with you. If you're new here, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss a story. And if you're returning, thank you. Your support means everything. Now, stay until the end, drop a comment with your thoughts, and let's begin. Lesia woke to the sound of her own breathing. Ragged, uneven, sharp enough to scrape the inside of her throat. She jerked upright so fast the world shattered into double images. White ceilings, shimmering light, too much space, too much silence. Her heart pounded erratically, trying to catch up after everything had gone so violently wrong. She blinked hard, trying to steady her vision. This wasn't a hospital. She knew that instantly. Hospitals didn't have chandeliers heavy enough to look like they could crush someone. They didn't have velvet drapes sweeping across windows taller than her entire living room. They didn't have soft golden lamps that cast warm light across polished floors or beds that felt like sinking into clouds. This was a room. A very expensive room. A room she did not belong in. Her breath stuttered. Panic rose fast. Too fast, like someone had lit a fuse in her chest. She pressed a trembling hand to her ribs. She could breathe, better at least. The tightness was still lingering around the edges, but not like before. Not like the pharmacy. Not like when the room had collapsed inward and she couldn't draw enough air to stay conscious. Her inhaler. Her eyes darted around the nightstand, the floor, everywhere. Her pulse spiked when she didn't see it. This can't be happening. Where am I? What did he do? Who even was he? She swallowed, her throat dry, gritty, raw. Her legs swung off the bed before she even realized she was moving. The moment her feet hit the cold marble floor, her knees wobbled. She grabbed the bed frame to steady herself. She had to get out. She had to find a door. She had to. A soft click froze her mid-step. The bedroom door was opening. Lesia's heart leapt up into her throat. And then she saw him. The stranger from the pharmacy. Except seeing him now, fully, clearly, made something inside her chest twist in a way she didn't have a name for. He stepped inside quietly, like he was used to moving through rooms without alarming anyone. But everything about him was impossible to ignore. Tall, broad-shouldered, sharp-jawed, dark hair, eyes that carried an alertness that didn't seem to switch off. Every detail about him looked deliberately put together. The smooth, dark shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, the subtle but expensive watch, nothing flashy, but nothing average either. He stopped when he saw her trying to stand. His voice dropped, low and even. You shouldn't be up. The calmness wasn't comforting. It made her pulse spike harder. Her fingers tightened around the bed frame. Where am I? He didn't answer right away. He scanned her face first, her color, her breathing, her posture, as if reading vital signs was second nature to him. His expression didn't change, but something in his shoulders eased slightly, like her being conscious was something he'd been uncertain about. You're safe, he said quietly. That's the important part. Safe. She almost laughed. Or cried. Or both. Where am I? She repeated, voice harsher. He lifted a hand slightly, not to reach toward her, but to show he wasn't. You fainted in the pharmacy. Twice. You weren't breathing properly. I brought you somewhere you could recover. Recover. That wasn't an answer. Her chest tightened again, not from asthma this time, but from a rising burn of fear. You should have taken me to a hospital, she said, each word clipped, strained. A muscle flickered in his jaw, just for a moment. They would have taken too long, he said. You needed immediate help. How would you know that? He didn't reply. Not right away. His silence stretched just long enough to confirm what she already sensed. He wasn't telling her everything. Lesia's breathing quickened. She gripped the bed harder. "I want to leave." "You can't," he said instantly. Her stomach dropped. The stranger's eyes widened like he'd heard his own words too late. He stepped back, not forward, hands raised slightly. "I mean you shouldn't," he corrected, tone shifting. "Not until you can actually stand without collapsing. You're still not stable." His attempt to soften the statement did nothing. Her voice dropped to a whisper edged with raw panic. "Are you keeping me here?" "No," he said firmly. Too firmly. "I'm not holding you captive." Then why did it feel like she was? He took another slow step back, giving her space. Measured, controlled, intentional. "Lesia, you weren't breathing. You were dangerously close to." "Stop." Her voice cracked, trembling with old fear and new confusion. "Just don't say it." He paused, then nodded once, as if understanding that line wasn't meant to be crossed. "I'll answer your questions," he said. "All of them. But sit down first." "No," she shook her head, refusing. "I'm not sitting. I'm not staying. I want my inhaler, and then I'm leaving." His expression shifted, not anger, not offense, something more like restraint. Like he was carefully folding something sharp away before she could see it. He reached into his back pocket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small pharmacy bag. Her inhaler was inside. The relief hit her so hard her knees buckled again. She caught herself on the dresser, and he moved, fast, but stopped halfway when he realized she had steadied herself. He set the bag on the edge of the bed. "I bought 3, he said. "You went down before the pharmacist could finish fixing the insurance issue." The room tilted again, not physically this time, emotionally. Her throat tightened for a different reason. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. "You don't even know me." His eyes flickered with something she couldn't read. "Because you needed it." That wasn't an answer either. Lesia swallowed hard. "You spent money, real money, for a stranger." He didn't blink. "I've spent money on much worse things." That line sat in the air like a shadow. She hated how little she knew about him. She hated how much he seemed to know about her physical condition. She hated how calm he was while her mind was spiraling. And she hated, truly hated, that he'd saved her life. Her voice cracked. "I can pay you back. I just need time. Or a few days. Or—" He cut her off with a single quiet sentence. "You don't owe me anything." She froze. He said it without hesitation. Without hesitation, but not without weight. Her breath stuttered again, not from asthma, but confusion. His voice softened, not warm, not gentle, controlled. Measured. "I didn't bring you here to trap you," he said. "I brought you here because someone at the pharmacy was watching you a little too closely. And not because you were in medical distress." She felt her heart stop. Her voice came out barely audible. "Watching me." He nodded once. Not casually. Not accidentally. "They were tracking you." A chill slid through her spine. "How do you know that?" He exhaled. Slow, steady. "I know what it looks like when someone studies a target." Target. The word hit her like a slap. Her pulse hammered in her ears. "This is insane. Why would anyone?" "I don't know yet," he said. "But I saw it. And I wasn't going to leave you there in that condition, with someone like that lurking nearby." She stared at him. At his steady posture. At his unreadable expression. At the unspoken things sitting behind his eyes. "Who are you?" she whispered. He held her gaze. For the first time since she'd woken up, he looked human. Worried. Uncertain. Haunted by something far older than this situation. "My name is David." "That doesn't tell me anything." He hesitated. Then his voice dropped lower. "It tells you the only thing that matters right now." Her pulse raced. "And what's that?" "That I don't want anything from you," he said. "But someone else might." The air in the room shifted. Heavy, sharp, dangerous. A cold realization crept into her bones. She wasn't just in the home of a stranger. She might have been saved from something she didn't even know was coming. Lesia didn't realize she was holding her breath until the silence became unbearable. "Someone was tracking me," she repeated, the words tasting wrong in her mouth. "Why would anyone do that? I'm nobody." David didn't flinch. People don't get followed because they're somebody. They get followed because someone wants something. "That doesn't make sense," she whispered. "There's a lot that doesn't make sense yet." His tone remained calm, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. "Which is why you're safer here for now." She swallowed hard, her throat tight for reasons that had nothing to do with asthma. "I didn't ask to be here." "You didn't ask to stop breathing either," he replied softly. That shut her up. He studied her for another second. Too observant, too controlled, then turned toward the door. "I'll give you space. There's food downstairs. You need strength back before anything else." Space sounded good. Space sounded necessary. But the moment he stepped out, the enormous room seemed to swell, stretching with shadows and questions that chased each other across her thoughts. She clutched the inhaler in her hand. Having it close steadied her. Barely. When her dizziness eased, she pushed herself to her feet, moving slowly, determined not to fold again. The room was too quiet, the air too still. She cracked the door open, carefully, cautiously, and stepped into the hallway. It was worse out here. Wider. Colder. Impossibly elegant. Cream marble floors. Dark wood accents. Huge windows revealing nothing but black sky. Her heartbeat echoed so loudly she swore it bounced off every wall. She followed the faint sound of voices, low, sharp, tense, until she reached the top of a spiral staircase. She froze. David was downstairs, speaking with someone she didn't recognize. A tall, broad man dressed all in black, posture stiff with authority. Security. Bodyguard. Hitman. She couldn't tell. Their voices floated upward. "You brought her here." The stranger hissed. "David, are you out of your mind?" "She would have passed out again," David answered. "Maybe worse." "That's not the issue. You don't know who she is." "I know she needed help." "You barely know anything about her." Lesia's stomach flipped. Her breath hitched. They were talking about her. And what if this is a setup? The other man pressed. "You think no one would use something like this to get close to you?" David's voice dropped lower, colder. "Camden." She stopped breathing. She wasn't faking. Camden. So that was his name. Lesia gripped the railing, pulse hammering in her ears. A setup. Get close to you. What did that even mean? Camden's voice cut in again. Hard, professional. "You should have called me the second it happened." She didn't have time for a phone call. "And you really believe that?" Just like that. David didn't reply. But Camden's next words hit like a blade. She could be connected to the breach. Breach? What breach? Lesia's hand slipped, making the railing creak. Both men snapped their heads upward instantly. David's eyes met hers. Not angry. Not startled. Something else. Cautious. Measured. Concerned enough to make Camden step forward, instantly positioning himself between them like she was a threat. David lifted a hand. "Stand down." Camden didn't move. Lesia forced her breath steady. "I wasn't trying to eavesdrop," she said, though the shakiness in her voice betrayed her. "You shouldn't be walking yet," David said, his tone gentler than Camden's glare. Camden's eyes scanned her the way someone scans a suspicious object. Too calculating, too cold. "You're awake earlier than expected," he said, tone edged with something she didn't like. Lesia swallowed hard. "I just needed air." Camden scoffed. "You had an attack less than." "Camden." David's voice sliced cleanly through the air. "That's enough." Camden finally stepped back but didn't remove his eyes from her. It wasn't a protective watch. It was assessment. Suspicion. Lesia crossed her arms over herself, suddenly feeling small under the weight of the mansion. David approached her slowly, carefully, as though fast movements might send her spiraling. "You should sit," he said. "You're pale." Lesia stiffened. "I'm fine." "You're shaking." She looked down. He was right. Her hands trembled subtly, betraying her completely. She hated it. "Let me get you something to eat," David added. "Your blood sugar probably crashed." She didn't want food. She wanted answers. "Why is your security chief talking like I'm dangerous?" she asked. David hesitated, but only for a breath. "Because he's cautious," he said. "It's his job." "That wasn't caution," she said. "That was something else." David's jaw flexed. Camden stayed silent, but she could feel his eyes drilling into her. Finally, David exhaled. "There was an incident last week," he said quietly. "A breach into one of my private networks. Personal, not business. Someone tried to get close." Her heartbeat stuttered. "And you think I—" "No," David said sharply, shutting the idea down before she could finish. "I don't." "But he does," she said, glancing at Camden. Camden didn't deny it. David sighed. "He trusts data. I trust what I saw." "What did you see?" she whispered. His voice lowered, not soft, not intimate, just honest. "I saw someone who couldn't breathe and was terrified." Her chest tightened again, not from asthma. "And until I know who was tracking you," he added, "I'm not risking you walking out of here alone." Her breath caught. "What if I don't want to stay?" she asked. David didn't corner her, didn't step closer. He simply held her gaze, steady and unreadable. "Then I won't keep you," he said. "But you need to understand something before you decide." "What?" His expression darkened, not toward her, but toward the memory of whatever he saw back at that pharmacy. "The person watching you wasn't browsing. They weren't curious. They weren't concerned." A pause. "They were assessing you." Her skin prickled. Camden spoke up then, quiet, grim. "And they weren't looking at her like a victim." Lesia's voice trembled. "Then how were they looking at me?" David answered. "Like an opportunity." The chandelier above them hummed faintly as the weight of that word settled over her. Opportunity. For what? She didn't know. But every instinct in her body whispered the same thing. She wasn't safe out there. Not alone. Not anymore. Lesia didn't remember sitting down. One moment she was standing on the stairs, heart punching her ribs from the inside, and the next she was on the edge of the sofa in David's enormous living room, hands clasped too tightly in her lap. Camden stood near the windows, arms crossed, watching her like she might suddenly detonate. David paced once, only once, before stopping in front of her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cold. He was controlled, the way pilots get during turbulence. Focused, calculating, ready to react before disaster could touch the cabin. "Lesia," he said quietly, "I need to show you something." Her chest tightened. "Show me what?" He nodded at Camden. Camden pulled a tablet from inside his jacket and placed it on the glass coffee table. The screen lit up instantly. Lesia's breath stopped. It was security footage. Of the pharmacy. From today. Her pulse thudded painfully as David crouched in front of her. Not close, not intrusive, just level with her eyes. He tapped the screen. "Watch." The video played. There she was, shopping aisle, her inhaler in hand, moving toward the counter. She remembered that part. Her breathing had already been tightening. Her vision hazy. But her eyes drifted past the image of herself and landed on a man. Standing in the corner. Wearing a dark cap. Black hoodie. Arms crossed. Face angled down. Half hidden. She hadn't noticed him. In the footage, he wasn't browsing. Wasn't pretending. He was watching her. Then, he pulled something from his pocket. Held it low. Pointed directly at her. Lesia's heart seized. "What is that?" she whispered. "Look closer," David murmured. Camden zoomed in. The image sharpened. It wasn't a gun. Wasn't a knife. It was a phone. But not held like someone texting. Held like someone recording. Her stomach dropped. He was filming me, she breathed. No, David said. Not filming. Camden's voice cut sharp. He was scanning your face. She snapped her head toward him. What does that even mean? David tapped the screen again. The man tilted his phone slightly, just a fraction, revealing a green grid across her face. A digital outline. Like facial recognition software. Her skin went cold. He was identifying you, Camden said. Pulling your info. Lesia shook her head fast. No. No, why would anyone, what information? What does that even get them? David answered softly. Everything. She pressed a hand to her forehead. This is insane. I'm a retail worker. I rent a tiny apartment. I don't have money, I don't have enemies, I don't have. You have something, Camden snapped. Whether you know it or not. David shot him a glare, but Camden didn't look away. The video continued. It showed her wobbling slightly, breathing harder, her hand trembling as she reached the counter. Then the man in the cap stepped closer. Too close. Much too close. Pause it, David said quietly. Camden did. Lesia stared at the screen. The man was inches behind her. Close enough to touch her. Close enough to. Her breath hitched. Is he doing something to me? She whispered, voice cracking. Camden didn't answer. David did. We don't know. The room spun again. David leaned forward slightly. Not touching her, just grounding the moment with his steady voice. You told the pharmacist you felt dizzy before you collapsed. Lesia nodded slowly, pulse thundering. I thought it was my asthma. I was short of breath. Yes, David said. But the timing matters. He let the silence sit, just long enough to make her feel the weight of it. Then, you started losing your balance the second he got behind you. Her throat tightened. I don't remember him, she whispered. Camden's voice came low. That's the point. Lesia's heart hammered. She stared at the frozen video, at the man standing right behind her like he owned the air around her. What happened next? She asked, barely able to breathe. David swallowed once, jaw flexing. You dropped your inhaler. She nodded. And then? David tapped the screen again. The video played. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the shelf. And behind her, the man in the cap stepped back. Quickly. Purposefully. Disappearing behind a display. Leaving her to collapse. To struggle. To choke for air alone. Lesia felt her skin crawl. He walked away, she whispered. He didn't just walk away, David said, voice tightening. He hid. Camden added, because once you fainted, his job was done. Lesia's breath stuttered again. His job. David didn't soften it. Yes. Her vision blurred. So he wanted me to. She couldn't finish. David looked at her with something steady, grounding but dark. We don't know what he wanted, he said. Not yet. But it wasn't random. The tablet screen dimmed, fading the frozen image of the man. Camden stepped forward, folding his arms. Until we know who he is and why he wanted you alone and unconscious, you're staying here. Lesia shook her head fast. No, I can't. I have work tomorrow and my phone and my apartment. David's eyes hardened, not unkindly but unyieldingly. Check your pockets, he said. Her stomach clenched. She reached into the pocket of the oversized t-shirt he'd given her. Her fingers closed on nothing. No phone. No wallet. No keys. She froze. Camden said it first. He took them. Lesia's entire body went cold. And until we figure out why, David said softly, you're not leaving this house. Lesia didn't speak for a long time. She couldn't. Her thoughts were spinning too fast, like every fear she'd ever shoved into the back of her mind was suddenly clawing its way forward. David straightened from his crouch, not taking his eyes off her. Camden stepped back only enough to give her space, never enough to drop his guard. The mansion felt colder now. Bigger. Too quiet. Finally, Lesia found her voice. How long have you had that footage? David's expression didn't shift. Since the minute I brought you home. The answer was immediate. Too immediate. Her stomach twisted. You had it before I even woke up? His jaw flexed once. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded, breath shivering. Camden answered instead. His tone clipped. Because you could barely breathe, let alone process that someone might be targeting you. Lesia swallowed hard. Targeting me for what? I don't have anything worth. You're wrong. David's voice cut through everything. Calm. Deep. Uncomfortably certain. Lesia's chest tightened. Then tell me what you think he wanted. David hesitated. Just barely. But Lesia saw it. And the hesitation terrified her more than the footage. You don't know, she whispered. You're guessing. David looked away for the first time since the video started. Which meant one thing. There was something he wasn't saying. Something he suspected. Her pulse spiked. David, what do you think this is? Silence. Camden shifted his stance. David's fingers curled into a fist at his side. Neither spoke. That told her more than words. Her voice cracked. Am I in danger? David turned back to her slowly. Eyes sharp, focused, a storm restrained by pure will. Yes. That simple. That blunt. Her breath stuttered again. Why? He didn't answer immediately. Camden did. Because men like that don't pick random targets. Lesia shook her head. Tears burning her eyes. This doesn't make sense. I'm not important. I'm not rich. I don't have connections. You have something someone wants, David said. Even if you don't know what it is yet. Her hand shook. This is insane, she whispered. You're acting like there's some conspiracy, like I'm involved in something dangerous. David exhaled through his nose, steady but tense. We're not assuming anything yet. That's a lie, she snapped. His eyes flickered. She saw it in him. He was assuming something. Something he wasn't ready to say aloud. And that made her chest tighten so hard she could barely breathe again. You should have told me, she whispered. You should have shown me the footage the moment I woke up. David stepped forward, not threateningly, not aggressively, just enough so she could feel the weight of his presence. You couldn't stand without collapsing, he said quietly. You weren't ready. You don't get to decide that for me. His jaw tensed. Camden's voice cut in, sharp. You'd be dead if he hadn't decided things for you. Lesia flinched. The air in the room dropped another degree. David shot Camden a warning look, quick, fierce, but didn't contradict him. Lesia wrapped her arms around herself. Her pulse raced painfully. Her breath grew uneven again. And David noticed. He softened. Not his expression but his voice. Lesia, he said, stepping closer. Look at me. She didn't want to. She did anyway. You're safe here, he said. I won't let anything happen to you. His tone was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm someone uses when they're covering something. Lesia whispered. Safe from what? David opened his mouth. Stopped. Closed it again. That hesitation again. The one that said, he knows more than he's saying. Lesia's voice trembled. What aren't you telling me? A muscle ticked in his jaw. Camden stepped forward like he expected David to finally say it. But he didn't. Instead, David's voice dropped into something low, steady, and unyielding. Until I know exactly who that man is and what he wants, you're not leaving this house alone. Not for work. Not for groceries. Not even for air. Her heart slammed into her ribs. That sounds like a threat, she whispered. David's expression shifted, hurt flashing through it for half a second before his control slammed back into place. It's not, he said. It's protection. Protection from what? She cried, voice cracking. He stared at her. Long quiet. Tortured. But he still didn't answer. Snow fell outside the windows. Slow, soft flakes drifting down across the massive glass walls. Inside the mansion, Lesia felt that same cold settle in her bones. She whispered the question again, smaller this time. David, what do you know? He inhaled. And for the first time since the pharmacy, his voice was not calm, not controlled, not steady. It was quiet, heavy, borderline shaken. Lesia, he said, that man wasn't watching you. Her stomach twisted painfully. He continued. He was watching me. For a moment, the room didn't move. Not David. Not Camden. Not even Lesia, whose lungs seized so sharply she forgot how to inhale. He was watching you, she repeated, barely audible. David's throat worked once. He didn't look away. Yes. 2 letters. And the entire world tilted. Lesia stumbled back a step before she realized she was moving. Her hand hit the side of the dresser for balance. You said I was in danger, she whispered. You made it sound like this was about me. David's jaw tightened. It is about you. Then why, how? Her voice cracked. Why would someone watch you and then come after me? David inhaled slowly, deeply, like he was preparing for impact. Camden answered before he could. Collateral. Lesia froze. David shot Camden a sharp warning look. Camden didn't care. He wanted to get close and you were the opening. He knew David would react if a stranger collapsed in front of him. Lesia stared at them, disbelief clawing through her chest. That's ridiculous, she said, voice trembling. Why would I matter to anyone spying on David? I don't even know who he is. Her voice cracked on the last word. And there it was, the unspoken truth she'd been trying to ignore since waking up in this impossible place. David wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't just private. He was someone important enough to be watched. And someone dangerous enough to be watched carefully. David stepped closer. Slow, deliberate. Lesia, he said quietly. Listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not involved in any of this. She shook her head. No. You're not giving me answers. Either of you. You're deciding what I need to know like I'm some responsibility you never asked for. Camden scoffed under his breath. David's jaw twitched, sharp. Lesia's voice rose. Sharp, cracking. Why did you bring me here? Why didn't you take me to a hospital like a normal person? Why are there cameras? Why is your security chief treating me like a threat? And why? Her voice broke. Why does some stranger at a pharmacy know who you are but I don't? Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. David closed his eyes for half a second, like her words physically hit him. When he opened them again, they weren't cold. They weren't warm. They were something far more dangerous. Haunted. Because, he said quietly, any hospital I take you to becomes a record, a target, a public trail. And I'm not losing another person because of that. Lesia froze. Another person? Something flickered through David's expression. Grief sharp and quick, like a burn he hadn't expected her to touch. Camden straightened subtly, as if bracing. Lesia whispered. Who did you lose? David didn't answer. Not verbally. But the devastation in his eyes told her more than any explanation. Her breath shook. David, I can't stay here if you won't tell me the truth. His expression cracked. Just a sliver. Lesia. No, her voice steadied, even as her hands shook. I can't live in a mansion I don't understand, watched by cameras I didn't consent to, protected from threats I don't know exist. She stepped backward. David moved forward instinctively. Don't, she said quickly. Please. He froze. Her chest ached. I need to leave. The words dropped between them like something shattering. Camden's eyes sharpened. David's entire body tensed like he'd been hit. You're not safe, he said, voice low, too calm. Not outside. Not alone. You're not giving me a choice. I am, he said. It's just not the one you want. Lesia shook her head slowly, tears burning hot at the corners of her eyes. I can't stay in a place where I'm being protected from shadows. If something's going on, tell me what it is. And if you can't, her voice wavered, then I'm leaving. David looked like he was fighting something inside himself. Something deep. Something brutal. Lesia, he started. But she was already moving. She brushed past him, only just, but he turned with her movement, instinctively reaching out without touching her. Lesia, don't go outside. I have to. Listen to me. But she kept walking. Camden stepped in her path, trying to block her. Move, she whispered. No, Camden said flatly. You're not cleared to. David snapped. Camden. One word. Sharp. Cold. Final. Camden stiffened and stepped aside. Lesia walked past him, her heart hammering so hard she felt it in her teeth. David followed her into the hallway, but didn't grab her. Didn't raise his voice. Just said one thing. If you walk out that door without protection, I can't guarantee what happens next. She froze at the top of the stairs. The mansion's front door felt unbearably far away and way too close at the same time. Her breath trembled. Then tell me why, she whispered without turning. Tell me what I'm in the middle of. Tell me the truth. David didn't answer. And that was answer enough. Lesia walked down the last steps, crossed the foyer she barely remembered arriving through, reached the door. Her hand trembled on the handle. Behind her, David's voice, quiet, breaking, echoed down the hall. Lesia, please. She didn't look back. She opened the door. Cold air rushed in, and she stepped outside. The cold hit her like a slap. Sharp. Real. A shock that made every nerve wake at once. Lesia pulled her thin jacket tighter as she stepped onto the front steps of the mansion, the same one she'd been carried up while barely conscious. They felt taller now. Wider. More exposed. Behind her, the front door clicked shut with a soft, devastating finality. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Her breath puffed white in the freezing air as she hurried down the long stone path toward the gate. The estate was enormous, a private world carved out of darkness and money, surrounded by tall wrought iron and trees that whispered in the wind. Her boots crunched over gravel. Her lungs fluttered, already tightening from the cold. Not now. Not again. She rubbed her chest, forcing her breathing to stay slow. The truth is simple, she told herself. You're leaving. You're choosing yourself. You're not a prisoner. But her legs felt unsteady, and her pulse wouldn't calm, because a darker thought kept chasing her. Why did he look so scared when I reached for the door? The path stretched longer than she remembered. The gate was still several yards away when she reached the bend, and realized how quiet it was. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made the air feel heavy. She slowed. Grass rustled on her left. Just the wind, she told herself. She took another step. Something shifted again, closer. Her heartbeat spiked hot and violent. Okay. Not wind. She glanced back toward the mansion's glowing windows, small squares of warm light far behind her. David wasn't there. Camden wasn't there. No one was. The rustling came again. She spun toward it. Nothing. Just dark trees. Cold grass. Silence. Her throat tightened painfully. Get a grip, she whispered to herself. You're jumpy. You're scared. That's all. She walked faster. The gate gleamed ahead. Tall, black iron, electronic keypad waiting. She picked up her pace. A car engine hummed. Slow. Low. Rolling toward the road just beyond the gate. Her breath hitched. No headlights. Her feet stopped moving. The engine grew louder. Not fast. Not reckless. Just approaching. The kind of approach meant to be silent. Meant to be unnoticed. Lesia's hands trembled as she reached for the keypad. The car stopped. Not close enough to see the driver. Close enough to see the silhouette inside. A man. Sitting completely still. Watching the gate. Watching her. Her pulse slammed into her ribs so hard she nearly dropped her hand. No. No, this is a coincidence. Just someone turning around. Just someone lost. Her fingers hovered over the keypad. The car door opened. Slowly. Her stomach dropped to the ground. A figure stepped out, tall, hooded, face hidden in shadow. Her entire body locked. The man didn't move toward her. He stood by the car, watching, waiting. The cold sliced into her lungs, making each breath thinner than the last. She took one step backward. The man shifted his weight, not toward her, just acknowledging the movement, like he was tracking her. Her breath fumbled. Her fingers shook. She turned and ran. Pure instinct. Pure terror. Pure adrenaline. The gravel slipped under her shoes as she sprinted back up the long path, lungs screaming in the cold, breath ragged and sharp. Behind her, the car door slammed. The engine revved. Not fast. Not chasing. Just moving. Following. Her vision blurred with tears from the icy wind as she pushed herself harder. Lights flooded the path ahead. Blinding. White. Explosive. Lesia skidded to a stop, raising a hand to shield her eyes. Another engine. A second vehicle. This time speeding. Tires crunched to a violent stop only feet in front of her. Her heart sputtered. The driver door flew open. And David jumped out. He didn't yell. He didn't hesitate. He sprinted straight to her, grabbing her shoulders with hands that shook harder than her own. Lesia, what were you thinking? His voice wasn't loud. It was raw. You can't just run like that. David, there's a man. Her voice cracked as she pointed toward the gate. David whipped around instantly. Camden emerged from the passenger side, already armed, already moving, already scanning. But the road beyond the gate was empty. Silent. The car was gone. The man was gone. Like they had never been there. Lesia's knees buckled. David caught her before she hit the gravel, pulling her against him. His arms tight enough to steady but not cage. It's okay, he murmured, breath sharp with leftover panic. I've got you. I've got you. Her lungs were seizing again. Her breath shallow. Her hands ice cold. I told you not to leave the house, he said, voice shaking as he held the back of her head. I told you. Camden's voice cut through the air. David, this wasn't coincidence. David didn't answer. He didn't look away from Lesia. He cupped her face gently but firmly so she would look at him. Lesia, he said, voice barely above a whisper. You're not leaving this house again. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until I find out who that man is. Tears spilled from her eyes. Fear, confusion, and the awful realization that she had just stepped into something she didn't understand. David pressed his forehead lightly to hers. Careful, steady. You're safe now, he said softly. But his arms tightened just a little, and that tiny movement betrayed him. He didn't believe his own words. Not tonight. Not anymore. The night outside the Hale estate was quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty anymore. Not the way it used to for David. The halls that once echoed now held voices, footsteps, and something warmer, life. Lesia stood in the doorway of his office, holding a stack of papers to her chest. They weren't bills. They weren't hospital forms. They weren't anything that came with panic attached. They were plans, blueprints, notes, ideas written in her handwriting. David looked up from his desk the second he sensed her there. He always noticed her first now. He'd start talking before she even spoke. You ready? He asked. She nodded. Yeah. Let's do it. They walked down the hall together, not touching, not clinging. Just walking side by side with that quiet understanding that had built between them over months, not moments. The doors to the foundation wing opened, revealing a room full of people. Doctors. Volunteers. Staff. The big screen at the front was lit with the title. The Hale Access Project. 1-year impact report. Lesia swallowed hard. Her chest warmed. Not tight. Not burning. Just full. Mrs. Talbot spotted her first. There she is. Our director. Lesia laughed under her breath and tried to wave her off, but the older woman only smirked. You earned that title, she said, patting her arm before slipping away. David took his place at the front. He didn't give speeches often. He always hated them. But tonight he wasn't nervous. He didn't even check his notes. He just looked at Lesia. And then he began. When this project started, he said, it wasn't about numbers. It wasn't about publicity. It wasn't even about growth. It was personal. The room quieted. He didn't say his sister's name. He never did in public. But everyone knew. David continued, voice steady, toned down, letting the truth carry itself. People fall through cracks every day. Some never get back up. Some don't get the chance to. So we decided to build something that catches them before the fall. He paused. Someone caught me too, he added softly. Lesia's breath caught. Not the dangerous kind. Just the emotional kind she couldn't stop. For one heartbeat, she saw the pharmacy floor again. The spinning lights. The panic. The moment everything in her life broke open. And then she saw now. This room. This project. This man looking at her like she was something that changed him, not something he rescued. The presentation went on, videos of families helped, clinics funded, kids receiving treatment they couldn't afford. Applause filled the room once it ended. When the lights came back on, people crowded around Lesia with questions. She answered each one calmly, confidently. No shaking hands. No shallow breaths. No fear that any second she'd collapse again. Eventually the crowd thinned, and she stepped into the hallway for air. David followed a moment later. You did good, he said quietly. So did you. They stood there, not speaking, just taking in the quiet that didn't feel empty anymore. A soft buzz sounded from Lesia's phone, her brother, sending her a picture of his college dorm. He was smiling. He never used to smile like that. David saw her expression change. He okay? He's great, she said, unable to stop the small grin. He got into the campus art club. He said he finally feels normal. David nodded, something like pride warming his face. A beat passed. Not silent. Just full. Lesia exhaled slowly. You know, sometimes I still think about that day. His jaw tightened, not with fear but memory. The pharmacy. She nodded. Everything in my life fell apart in an aisle next to cough drops and shampoo. And everything started for me in that same aisle, he said softly. She looked at him, surprised. He didn't look away. Lesia, he said quietly, that day didn't break anything. It connected two people who were falling in different ways. Her chest pulled tight. Emotion, not fear. There was a difference now. A big one. She stepped closer. Not dramatic. Not rushed. Just honest. I'm glad you caught me, she said. I'm glad you let me, he replied. The moment settled between them. Stable, warm, real. Not a rescue. Not a panic. Not an accident. A choice. They walked back toward the office side by side, the lights of the foundation glowing behind them like a city built from everything they'd survived. As they crossed the threshold, Lesia glanced up at him. You know, sometimes I forget how it all started. David's lips curved, small and soft. I don't, he said, because that was the day I almost lost a stranger, and found the person who changed my life. She looked ahead again, smiling. A quiet, steady breath filled her lungs. Smooth, strong, free. The kind of breath she used to fight for. Her voice was soft, but clear. I fainted that day because I couldn't breathe, she said. But I woke up here because I finally could. David didn't answer. He didn't need to. They walked forward together. Toward the work, toward the life they built, toward the future that waited. Fade out. What would you rate this story? Drop 0 to 10 in the comments right now. If this story moved you, hit subscribe for more emotional journeys every day. And if it truly touched your heart, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support helps us create more stories like this. Every contribution, big or small, means the world. Ready for the next story? It's even more dramatic than this one. Click now. Thank you for being part of this journey.